What's up, Booktube? It's Leah Cooper, and I'm finally bringing you my Booktube SFF Awards wrap-up for the YA category. So I've been berating myself all week about making this video, and I just haven't, one thing after another. Last night I was baking a birthday cake for my mom. The night before that I had to actually go to the grocery store to pick up a couple of things for that cake. And I don't know about you, but just the process of going to the grocery store right now is so stressful that it consumes a good portion of my afternoon, and then I have to relax afterwards. That's just how I feel, because you have to bundle up, and then I get so tense and stressed out while I'm there. Grocery shopping used to be one of my favorite things because I love to bake and cook, and now I can't do it. I've just kind of, I've just stocked up my pantry, and I haven't been going out, and I did do a restock of all my I might need these to make desserts or cookies, so I don't have to go out to the store items, but now it's just a very, very stressful activity. And then before that I was just, goofing off and not being productive. So anyways, I'm finally here. I'm ready to talk about the YA category. I also wanted to interject with one other cool little thing I got. So maybe if you follow me on Twitter, you might have seen me posting about Save the United States Postal Service. As part of that, I did buy stamps. I bought some little postcard stamps that, they're pretty glary because they do have a little bit of a shine, but they're little coral reef fish. And then I also bought, you've probably seen these around because I saw a lot of people buying these on social media. I also bought the dragon stickers, stamps, sorry. Let's see if it'll focus. Yeah, there you go. You can kind of see them. They're really cool. They have, I don't think the camera's picking them up, but they do have little coppery gold detailing on the little dragons. It's actually a quite nice little sheet of stamps. I'm really excited to use these later in the year when the United States Postal Service is doing a little bit better. I also have a postcard collection, but it's kind of in a couple of different places. I love to buy little local postcards, and that's why I bought the postcard stamps, because I haven't started sending my postcards out, but I plan to. So I think it'd be really fun maybe to do something with the channel or with Booktube friends and start a little postcard sending thing, because it's especially, so when I buy postcards, I always try to buy local ones that depict stuff about my area, not just Washington, but more unique aspects of it. And it might be kind of fun to do some sort of little postcard exchange. I'm gonna have to think about this more. On to the books. So the YA category, like the middle grade category for the Booktube SFF Awards this year, had 4 books nominated because there was a tie in the nominees. I, again, like the middle grade category, read 3 of the 4 books. The 4th book is something by Brandon Sanderson. I can't even remember the name. I'll just pop in a little picture right here of the cover. I do not read Brandon Sanderson. I will not read Brandon Sanderson. I'm going to interject real fast because I won't read Victoria Schwab because I've read so much Victoria Schwab, and I don't get along with her books. I don't think they're that well written. I think they're usually very poorly plotted, and it just bugs me. I don't read Brandon Sanderson because of his past stance on queer people. So I sat down to do this video, and I mentioned in this first part that I have been putting off filming this video, but I sat down today, right? And the red light was blinking on my camera, but I was like, this video is going to be short. It's going to be 15 minutes. I can get that filmed in the amount of time my battery has, and then it died about 2 minutes in. So what was I talking about? I was talking about why I don't read Brandon Sanderson, and maybe I should just skip over this part. I have problems with him. I have problems with the fact that he's hidden behind his religion to support hate, and I know that he now has queer characters in his books, but as far as I can tell, he has never put out any sort of apology or a thing saying, I was wrong or anything. And he had his homophobic blog post up on his blog literally up until maybe 18 months ago. That's a really fucking long time, and he kept it up on his blog after he had already started putting queer characters in his books. So he was profiting off of queer characters while still having that up on his blog. And I don't want to have anything to do with him. So I won't read his books. And it frustrates me how frequently and abundantly he appears in the Booktube SFF Awards. Like, do better, Booktube. But anyways, like, I don't have those problems with Victoria Schwab. I just don't like her writing. And I think she's way overhyped. So it's like there's a different reason for why I didn't read these two authors. And I will make that distinction. No slander to Victoria Schwab herself. As far as I know, she seems to be a fine person. Okay, so let's talk about the actual book. So I read 3 of 4, and I'm just going to start with The Wicked King. So I don't have The Wicked King to hold up. I will put an image of it up. In this video, but it's the sequel to The Cruel Prince, which I read in March, I think. March or February. And I think I gave this one 4 stars. I gave The Wicked King like 3 stars. I don't think I gave it 3.5. I think I just gave it a 3. And I was like, that's good enough. I think it's an okay book, but I can't really give it more than that. Like, it's okay. It's fine. I think the first 100 to 130 pages of it are boring, to be perfectly honest. And I can't exactly put my finger on why, but it was such a slog to get through that first 130 pages. So first third of the book was just really like sloggy. And then it did start to pick up in the middle for me. I did enjoy the middle of that book. One of the reasons is I did genuinely like Jude and Carden's character growth. I also kind of liked the tensions with Jude's sister, whose name I have now forgotten. I'm not going to be able to remember. There was some really interesting, good character stuff happening. There was some good, like, we'd kind of picked up a little bit the pace that was, like, I guess, the groundwork for it that was laid in that first 100 pages, but was still really sloggy. I kind of wish the first 175 to 200 pages had all been kind of like that middle 50 pages, because I was definitely like, oh yeah, okay, this is finally good. I am liking this. I didn't like Carden at all in The Cruel Prince, like, fuck him, throw him out a window. But I was finally starting to think he was kind of an interesting character in that middle portion. I was like, okay, this is the kind of enemies to lovers I can kind of get behind. However, the entire pace of the book then came to a screeching halt with the thing that happened with the undersea. I think I'm using the wrong word, but I don't want to give a spoiler here. I don't want to be too spoilery. It came to, and if you've read the book, you know what part I'm talking about. It completely derails the pace of the book. Screeching halt. And then we spend about, what was it, between 30 and 50 pages in the undersea where nothing happens. And when I was kind of thinking about what I wanted to talk about in this video, something occurred to me which I think would have helped The Wicked King. So I'm getting the impression, I haven't read the Queen of Nothing, but I'm going to assume that all 3 books have only one POV, and it's Jude. And you know, I'm usually a big fan of single POV books, and it works in this book. However, I think the biggest problem with The Wicked King is that it is a single POV, because all of the interesting stuff that's happening while we are in the undersea is happening to other characters. It's off screen. We don't see it. And the things we are seeing are boring. They're not explored, because if you wanted to explore the things that are happening in those sections, it needed to be another 75 plus pages, because we needed some plot to happen, and we needed enough time for like real character breakdown and reconstruction to happen. I'm trying to be vague with how I talk about this, because again, don't want to spoil, but I want to, if you've read the book, I want you to understand what I'm trying to talk about. So yeah, I just, because it's not long enough for anything of substance to happen, but it's too long where nothing happens, really. And like, there is a lot of stuff happening in this section, but it's all happening off screen, and I honestly, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I honestly think we should have gotten a Cardan POV throughout The Wicked King. There, I said it. I think it should have been a dual POV. I think it would have been a more interesting book. I think that might have helped make the first 100 pages more interesting, but it's not. And then we're so disconnected from everything that's happening because of this pace interruption that the final third of the book is kind of I liked the ending. I thought the ending was interesting, not like unsurprising, but it was interesting. But yeah, not overall, it's just so unevenly paced, and parts of it are just so uninteresting that I can't give it more than 3 stars. And, you know, I was thinking about it, trying to be like, well, maybe if I had read it as a teen, because it's definitely a very good teen book. It is written for teens, and I appreciate that. But even as a teen, I wouldn't have liked it. I think I still would have had the same screeching halt pacing problems, issues with. Maybe if I had read it when I was like 11 or 12, right when I was at the height of my like Labyrinth fandom involvement, I would have been interested in it. But then at that point, you know, I was reading fan fiction, and so I probably would have been disappointed with the lack of like actual sex in it. So, you know, I can't. If you enjoy them, great. I'm glad you enjoy them. I think they're okay. If I didn't have a friend who wanted to talk about the Queen of Nothing, I probably wouldn't even bother reading the Queen of Nothing, because I'm just not that compelled to find out how it ends. Because I feel like I could come up with a lot of endings for it in my own head, and they're pretty satisfactory. But I do have a friend who's read it, wants to talk about it. I'm concerned about reading it because like they don't like it, and we have fairly similar reactions, especially to bad third acts and things. We tend to like agree, so I'm concerned about that book, but I'll get around to reading it sometime later in the year. Okay, so obviously I'm not voting for that one. The next thing, and this is actually the one I read first, is The Gilded Walls by Roshani Chokshi. So I read this before the shortlist came out several months ago, just for fun, and I gave it 4 stars. I think I've said in my wrap-ups that, you know, it was entertaining. It's not a perfect book. It's got problems, but it's like start to finish pretty entertaining, pretty quickly paced, pretty easy to just read. Like, it's very bingeable. I know that's how people feel about these books. And like this one, The Cruel Prince, was actually a pretty fast read. But man, there was something about The Wicked King. It was too sloggy. So, this is a multi-POV kind of like, I think it's like a group of 5 or something, teenagers, and they need to steal some information. And there's this, it takes place in 1890s Paris or something like that, and it's kind of a steampunky feel to it, because they use their magic often to create kind of steampunky magic-fueled machines, which is really cool. The setting and the magic in this are really interesting. I do think all of the characters read like they're adults when they're but they acted like teenagers, but like one of them owns a fucking hotel. Like, are you kidding me? Lol. So it's in that kind of vein of YA, which I think I would have enjoyed as a child. I think I would have enjoyed this as I was like, not necessarily a teenager, but as a tween. So, because like I wasn't really into teen books when I was a teenager. When I was a teenager, I was reading adult books, and I wasn't interested in teen stories. But as like 11 to 13, I might have been interested in a teen story. So it's fine. So a criticism I heard Jade from the Bedtime Bookworm from talking about in one of her recent wrap-ups, where she talked about this book, and actually I agreed with it, and it reminded me that I'd had the same issue with this book and then kind of put the issue out of my brain because it could have like really kind of ruined my enjoyment. Was there are puzzles in this book, because there's kind of like a treasure hunt, historical treasure hunt sort of thing. So there are puzzles in this book, and they are solved way too easily. like every single one of them. It's super obscure and it's solved really quickly, really easily. And that is a problem. She is 100% correct. Like, and it's like, it's so frustrating because it's like not the puzzles themselves that are bad. It's just that how quickly they are solved, and the characters never seem to make a mistake when they're solving them. And that could have added some good conflict, like not conflict, but like obstacles, right? So plot conflict. My other big issue with this book is that there is a chapter right at the end where the kind of, it's multi-POV, but there is like one really main POV, Severin. He decides to act like a total bastard to his love interest, really out of nowhere, to try to drive her away. And it's really just setting up the fact that the author wants to make some easy relationship conflict in the second book. And it's so out of left field. It doesn't really feel like a genuine reaction compared to all the other buildup in the book. And it does keep me from really wanting to vote for this. The third thing I read for the YA category was Sorcery of Thorns. And I went back and forth on these two books quite a bit because I only gave this book like a 3.75 on Goodreads. I gave this a 4. And I think maybe that was over generous. I was mostly giving it a 4 because it was entertaining and quick. And up until that last chapter, I had really been liking it. This book is a standalone by Margaret Rogerson. And it is about a girl who was raised in a magical library. It takes place in a secondary fantasy world. And there are all these different magical libraries. And they hold grimoires, which are magical books that were created by sorcerers in previous ages. And magical books are created with really ugly dark magic. Sorcerers gain their power from summoning demons from, is it called the Otherworld? Otherworld, Underworld? Something like that. I think it's Otherworld. And they make deals with demons and then get magical powers. And they create grimoires to hold sorcery spells. And prior to this book, there was kind of like a peace accord. The reforms were created to kind of control what sorcerers could do so that they'd stop killing people and stuff. And all the grimoires were packed away into the libraries to be protected and to be kind of controlled and cataloged. Sorcerers can still access them, and sorcerers can still exist and perform sorcery, but there's rules now, basically government oversight. And so one of the things in this book is that someone kills the head warden of the library. Our protagonist, Elizabeth, I think is her name. They kill the head warden, and they corrupt one of the grimoires, which becomes a malefict. I'm probably mispronouncing that. And when you like damage a grimoire, it becomes a monster. And so our protagonist had to fight the grimoire to save the nearby town. And then that takes her away from the library, and everything goes on from there. Lots of stuff happens: politics, sorcery, mysteries, etc. And she ends up teaming up with a sorcerer to save the world, kind of. And it's a really solid story. I think the world building is very interesting. All of the parts of this book that take place in one of the libraries or with the grimoires is great. It really is genuinely great. It's a lot of fun. Elizabeth is a good character. All of the characters are, for the most part, written really evenly. And by that, I mean not that they're a flat line, but that when they are making decisions, it doesn't feel like they're just making decisions because the author is pulling strings to advance a plot or to create fake conflict or anything like that. All of the decisions, mistakes or otherwise, feel pretty natural. The ending is good. I don't want to give it away. Like, I can't even talk about it because it is something that's kind of weaved through, especially the second half of the book. So it's pretty well set up and it's pretty satisfying. Another thing I will grant this book too is that it does have a romance, which I wasn't a huge fan of it, but it's like the secondary, or it's like the B or C plot, which is good. And the ending doesn't hinge on romantic love, which again, I give it props for that, because the rest of the book is not setting up for like a big romantic plot love conclusion. And so it didn't go there, which is great for YA, because a lot of times they'll just go there even though it's not very compelling. However, while I was reading this, I just never quite got really swept up into it. It was fine, but there wasn't anything about this that was like, it was like a good book, but it's not an awards book. I think that was kind of my problem. And like an awards book needs to be doing something where I'm wowed by what it's doing, or I'm wowed by what it's saying, or it like, and by what I mean by what it's doing, I mean like the language or the structure, like the author is like technically doing something interesting and new, or they are saying something profound in some profound way. And really none of these books do that. Like, none of these 3 books are really what I would consider awards books. They're good books, they're entertaining books, they're fun books. Even The Wicked King, which is kind of like on the bottom for me, it's still like a fine read. I can totally understand why people are like kind of caught up in the drama of it. And it's not like, I know people have been talking about Serpent and Dove as being like guilty drama kind of book that they're enjoying, but it's pretty crap. Like, The Wicked King's not even like really that much of, it's not really crap. That was the other thing I will say about The Wicked King is I did unfairly judge Holly Black's writing. I thought, based on the fact that she'd co-written with Cassandra Clare and was such good friends with Cassandra Clare, I was really expecting her writing on a sentence-by-sentence level to be much worse than it was. It was actually pretty good. And like all the writing in these books is pretty good, pretty solid. But there's nothing about them, nothing that any of them are doing that's truly unique or revolutionary or profound or new or innovative. And so like trying to pick one for an award, it was a little bit tough. It really came down to these 2 because I think I had more fun just straight up reading this. But I do think this is a better book. So ultimately, I'm going to go with Sorcery of Thorns for my pick. Like, this is what I will be voting for in the YA category of the Booktube SFF Awards. I wanted more from this because I figured when I started, like when I got a little bit into it, about halfway through, I was like, this is probably going to be the thing I end up having to vote for. Because it is a little bit more evenly written than this. This is a little rocky and uneven, especially with some of the characters. But I wanted it to do something really profound or really interesting or really unique. And it was just kind of predictable. So I was a little let down by that because I am voting for it in an award. And like when you vote for something in an award, you want it to be like, oh wow, because it's winning because you're voting for it to be like, oh, an award. You're saying this is the best thing. And I don't think this is the best thing. But of the ones I've read, I do think this is very solidly written, very competently written. I think it's a good story. I think the world building is great. I like the ending. And like, the ending is really kind of, the ending works for this book. The author sets it up. She creates expectations. She lays down threads. Sometimes they're real heavy-handed, but they come to fruition. They mean something at the end of this book, and that's important. It's planting and payoff. This book does have planting and payoff. This book kind of ruins the end because of that chapter I mentioned with the romantic interests. That's so out of left field. That's trying to plant for the book 2, but it's payoff for nothing else that happens in here. And it's so out of character, so wildly out of character. Fundamentally, I do think Sorcery of Thorns does a better job of planting and payoff, even though there's never any like wow moment, even though I didn't cry. And I feel like I should have cried in this book, but I didn't. So there you go. My vote's for Sorcery of Thorns. It did take some debating, but I do think I'm going to go with quality. And I do think I have to vote for this one. Because it's the most evenly, competently put together, written and assembled and paced book of the 3 that I read. So there you go. This video ended up being a little bit longer than 15 minutes. Maybe it won't be when I edit it, but those are my thoughts. I really wish I had the Wicked King to hold up, since I have these two to hold up, but just pretend this is the Wicked King. Those are the three. And this is my vote. Let me know down in the comments below if you've read this category, if you're in the process of reading it, or if you want to read it. What are you going to be voting for in the YA category for the Booktube SFF Awards, etc. And I'll see you guys in my next video. I will be doing a wrap up next week, I think, of the short works category. Maybe I'll put it out this weekend, because I'm reading the last of the short works. I'm reading To Be Taught of Fortunate right now, and not quite halfway through. But yeah, I'll be putting that up, though I'm pretty sure I know, and you probably can guess what I'm going to be voting for. So yeah, how is your reading for the Booktube SFF Awards going? I'm so thankful that they extended the reading period another month because of like COVID and stuff. But that aside, because I've been doing so much Owls reading, I still need to read all 3 books for the debut category, and I haven't started any of them. And this is the terrible part. I had 2 of them out from the library this month, but I didn't have time to read them, so I returned them and I put myself back on the wait list. And now they have really long wait lists. So I kind of suspect that I'm not going to get to the debut / adult fantasy category, because obviously there was quite a bit of crossover between those 2 categories, so I was going to read both of those. I don't think I'm going to get to it, even with the month-long extension, which is a bummer. Hopefully your reading is going well. I hope you are staying safe and healthy and having a good time at home, whatever, etc. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!